Good morning, everyone. It's been a while, I know. It's going to be a hot one today, as it has been for the last couple of weeks. I guess it is what it is, right? Climate alarmists have people afraid of what they used to look forward to. Summer, Anyway, it's kind of laughing out loud at the silliness of the NATO press conference given by Joe Biden. And I've been watching all of this from afar with a little bit of humor. It's one of the few political things that doesn't cause me so much stress. It's a little bit more kind of just interesting to watch from afar. And there's lots that I could talk about, but I wanted to talk about one thing in particular. Joe Biden was talking about how, Ukraine's going to beat Putin. Fucking when, Joe? When? When is that going to happen? It's kind of interesting to me. And I was thinking a little bit more about that and about, for instance, all the people with the Ukraine flags on their Facebook profiles and all the people who are incensed at what's going on. I think it's a bit rich when, the majority of these people come from conquered lands, but they're very much angry that someone would invade another country. It kind of reminds me of when people go to, any big event. Oftentimes it's at universities or conference halls somewhere. And they'll start by doing the acknowledgement, right? We'd like to acknowledge that we're on the unceded territory of the such and such nation or whatever. And I always think to myself, then fucking give it back. Like, shut up about it or give it back. That's something that always really bothers me. Because it's sort of like if I was a member of that nation or tribe or whatever, it would feel like just a pointless exercise and almost a thumbing of the nose at it, right? And that's what you end up with the the discussions about Ukraine and Russia. Like, let's say Russia does conquer and actually, subsume the Ukraine. Will anyone ever accept that, or will they forever say, no, we don't accept that? Well, but we do over here because, this is our place, and we'll just do these little acknowledgements every once in a while, these meaningless acknowledgements every once in a while, right? Would Russia get that? Would that be okay if they just, we acknowledge we're on the unceded territory of the people of Ukraine? I kind of doubt it, right? So anyway, I find that interesting. Again, people from conquered lands being very, very upset, very incensed that like at some point we kind of got to come to terms with that as a species about, how do people end up where they are? What is the historic nature of this area, and even of the conquered people? Were they noble, and never invaded anybody, never did anything, never tried to take anything that didn't belong to them, et cetera, et cetera. Same with slavery, all of that. We got to sort of come to terms with the nature of at least our history, right? The other thing is too, I was thinking a lot about all of the aid that goes over there, and how, I started by thinking, well, it's cute that there's all this aid going there. And, you'll often get into, and I did on my channel here as well, you'll often get into kind of a little bit of a disagreement with a person over what that aid constitutes. Like, what does it actually look like? Is it a loan? Is it a gift? And of course people will say, well, no, it's actually, somehow this is a good thing, apparently. No, it's not that we're sending, whatever, $100 million over there or whatever. No, what we're actually doing is we're sending over a bunch of our second-rate artillery and weaponry and whatever else. And then where the money is going is to defense contractors to build a whole bunch of new stuff for us. So it's just more wealth transfer, right? It's going into the pockets of already wealthy, very powerful, very large defense contracting companies. So that's cute, and it's not a gift to the Ukraine. It's a loan. So it's some sort of a like, well, this is great because we can foist all of our second-rate stuff on them at a value we deem right, and then they got to somehow figure out how to pay it back as a broken, destroyed country. And so arguably that does mean they'll probably have to start selling state assets, which is going to be like infrastructure and land, probably to foreign countries. So that's fun. Just more wealth transfer, right? Oh, and of course, one certain way to protect the sovereignty of a country is to force them to end up selling half their shit to foreign nations, right? And also we can prolong a conflict that's just going to keep killing more Ukrainians. Like if you look at the population between Russia and the Ukraine, unless NATO had gotten involved right away and actually, brought the force to bear of, every member nation and maybe a couple of extras, this was never going to be anything but a protracted war that's going to really just keep wiping out a lot more Ukrainians. So that's a kind thing that has been done there on their behalf. But then also when it comes to the aid, it's like, it's a loan, yes, to Ukraine, but it's not a loan from the taxpayer, right? So in other words, you as a taxpayer, any of your taxes that have gone to fund the Ukraine aid in Ukraine, the U.S. expects that back from the Ukraine, but you can't expect that back from your government, right? You're not getting a rebate. You're not getting a refund check. You don't get to own. You don't get a little certificate that says you own this little square of land, square 6 inches of land in the Ukraine, as a repayment for your tax dollars in Ukraine aid. None of that. You don't get it back. Then, of course, the other thing is, it would be silly to say that anyway. Those of you who are thinking it already, you're right, because none of this comes from tax dollars anyway. Well, dogs aren't happy. None of this comes from your tax dollars anyway, because I'll just get past the doggies here for a sec. Wow, she's trying to quiet them, but they're not happy. Anyway, none of this is coming from your tax dollars. I mean, that's not how any of this works. When you're already operating in a deficit, any new expenditures necessarily are born from debt, right? Like you don't have the money. They didn't take it from you. They actually borrowed it in your name. So not only are you not going to get it back, but you'll be paying interest on it. And so then I thought, yeah, that's an interesting one. Like, when was the last time you borrowed money? You went to the bank and took out a loan to loan that money to someone else. Like, we don't operate that way, right? Except at the behest of government. I mean, if someone has to borrow this money to send aid to Ukraine, well, why wouldn't the Ukraine government just borrow it? Anyway, I just think, it's also ludicrous. It's also ridiculous. Save for the largesse of government, none of it would ever happen. None of it would ever be possible. It's only through the facade and the fiction and the farce that is government. It's like I say to my wife all the time, when something ridiculous like this I see occurring, I'll always say to her, well, this is why you can't have a government. I mean, you can, obviously, because we do, but this is what you're going to get, right? You're going to get all of this kind of nonsense. And here we have it, right? When was the last time you went to the bank and took out a loan just to loan that money to someone else? Maybe you could make sure you come out ahead by borrowing the money to buy yourself a new car, and then you can take your old car and give that to someone else, but expect repayment at a valuation of your choosing. Anyway, it just always seems very convenient to me, the narratives that are pushed and the reasoning that's given, so that people can achieve their objectives while still claiming to be virtuous and with high moral character and everything else. I find it all very, very interesting to watch from afar. It'll be interesting to note too how the history books reflect upon this, but you know, it could very well be that to just be a bunch of more people doing acknowledgements at some point in the future. And I'm not even talking about Russia, Ukraine. I'm talking about, you know, the current power brokers, right? You know, will they always be deemed as such? Will the history be written to protect their legacy, or will some truth actually be told at some point? You know, like mainstream, where it's written about, where children are learning about it at some future date. But again, it always reminds me of these acknowledgements, and to me, it's sort of like you steal your neighbor's lawnmower, and then every time you mow the lawn, you begin by shouting an acknowledgement over the fence, you know, to your neighbor that you recognize that this is an unseated lawnmower that you're about to mow the lawn with, but you never give it back or anything like that. You never. Okay, I've beat that to death. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.